May we all be touched in the places we thought were untouchable. May love reach the quiet corners of the heart, where success never reached, where silence felt safe, where we didn't even know we were waiting. May this story remind us that healing sometimes enters through the side door, with a child's laughter and a warm plate. Welcome back to Mr. Comfort Stories, your home of comfort, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If this story touches your heart, pause right now and drop a comment saying, "Real love grows in unexpected places." Like this video, share it with someone you care about, and don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Comfort Stories. Wayne Whitmore's penthouse had a view most people would trade sleep for. Floor-to-ceiling windows, imported marble floors. The skyline stretched like pride across glass. But for Wayne, none of that mattered. He didn't look out of windows. He looked inward, at lines, at order, at data. His day began at 4:58 a.m., not 5, not 4:59. He called it a clean start. The thermostat was set to 71.2 degrees. The coffee machine ran a black Americano on a 38-second cycle. The socks were arranged by shade, light grey, dark grey, and emergency navy. His apartment had no television, no mirrors outside the bathroom, no ticking clocks. Silence was the most consistent sound in his world, and he liked it that way. Wayne Whitmore was 34 years old, worth just under $42 million, and had never been touched. Not in the way that mattered. Not in the way that made your chest tighten when someone left the room. He wasn't saving himself. He just didn't know what it meant to be held. He built software so precise it replaced entire architecture teams. He could calculate the load-bearing capacity of a 12-story hotel using only his mind. But he could not calculate the weight of an empty home. His assistant, Kendra, once asked him, half-jokingly, why he didn't date. Wayne had blinked. Because chaos wears perfume. She didn't ask again. But that was before the Craigslist ad. Not that Wayne had ever browsed Craigslist in his life. He didn't even know it still existed. Kendra did all the filtering. He gave her the specs. Private chef, live-in, simple meals, no drama, no cameras, no interviews, just the food. If it's good, they stay. Dozens applied. Resumes flowed in with headshots, culinary school diplomas, long-winded cover letters. He rejected them all, until Kendra slid one across his desk with a smirk. "This one's different," she said. Wayne didn't look up. Different isn't always better. She placed a small Tupperware container beside the paper. "Just read it, and try that." He peeled the lid. The smell punched him in the chest. Something sweet, warm, like memory, like soul. The letter was 4 lines. "I'm a mother first, a cook second. I won't make foie gras, but I'll make meals that warm the bones. I need this job. I'm not fancy, but I'm faithful. And I can season greens like your grandma whispered the recipe into my ear." Wayne blinked. Twice. He didn't know what half the letter meant, but something lingered. Something unfamiliar. He looked up. Let her come. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Amber Riley stepped in wearing a worn yellow cardigan, clutching a reusable shopping bag like it held her future. Beside her was a small boy, brown-skinned and bouncing, twisting in happy little circles on the marble tile. He hummed to himself, stopped, palmed the floor. "Mama," he said, "this one's like snow, but colder." Amber's breath caught. Wayne tilted his head. "Is he all right?" Amber didn't flinch. "He's perfect." Wayne stared at the boy, then at her. She held up a plastic container, sweet potato cornbread, still warm. Wayne approached like it might explode. His nostrils twitched. Amber smiled gently. "It don't bite." Wayne took a square, bit, stopped, chewed slowly. The silence stretched. Then Wayne spoke, his voice flat. "You're hired." Amber blinked. "I haven't even..." He waved a hand. "You cooked. I listened." The suite next to Wayne's office was converted into a private living space for Amber and her son, Micah, soundproofed per Wayne's request. Not because of noise, because of boundaries. Always boundaries. Amber didn't complain. She didn't ask about pay, didn't ask for an office key, didn't ask about Wayne's life. She just cooked. On the first morning, Wayne stepped out of his room at 7:03. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and something, buttery. Amber was humming something old, Anita Baker maybe. Micah was stirring pancake batter with both hands. Wayne stood at the edge of the hallway, watched. The boy was talking, not just spinning or humming. And I stirred 3 times, Mama, just like you said. 1, 2, 3. Amber kissed the top of his head. You did perfect, baby. Wayne hadn't realized he was smiling until his jaw relaxed. He cleared his throat. Amber turned. Calm. Breakfast? Wayne opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded. Micah ran over, tugged his hand without permission. Come sit. Wayne stiffened. Micah paused, then whispered, You don't like touching. Wayne blinked. No, I don't mind. Micah nodded seriously. Okay, I'll just do elbows then. He bumped his elbow against Wayne's, like a contract, and Wayne, millionaire, tech savant, man of silence, felt his throat tighten. Micah smiled. Now you're one of us. Wayne lets Micah touch his elbow, the first voluntary contact in years. Laughter and joy enter his home for the first time. If you believe love can find us in unexpected ways, drop a comment saying, Real love grows in unexpected places. Like this story, subscribe to Mr. Comfort Stories, and share it with someone who needs comfort today. It happened 3 days after Amber moved in. Wayne hadn't meant to be in the hallway. His 7:15 meeting had ended early. He didn't like schedule deviations. They made the walls feel too close. So instead of returning to his room or his quiet corner office, he stood near the entrance to the kitchen, listening again. Amber had been narrating her sweet tea recipe out loud while Micah stirred sugar into a pitcher. Counterclockwise only, baby. That's the secret. Micah had giggled. But what if I go the wrong way? Amber grinned. Then we get lemonade with attitude. Wayne had smiled at the wall. But suddenly, something shifted. Micah dropped the wooden spoon. It clattered hard against the floor. Amber turned quickly. It's okay, baby. But the sound had already rippled through Micah's body like a shockwave. His breath hitched. He covered his ears. His small frame shook once, then again, like his own skin had betrayed him. No, 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 Micah cried. His voice rose. Too loud. Mama, it's too loud. He collapsed to the floor, his palms beating lightly against the tile. Wayne stood frozen. Micah was screaming now, not from pain, from overwhelm. His arms flailed. Legs kicked. His chest heaved as though the world had cracked open and poured chaos into his bones. Wayne's heart beat faster. Amber didn't yell, didn't flinch, didn't run. She dropped to her knees, scooting toward her son on instinct. Her cardigan slipped off one shoulder, her braids falling around her face like a shield. She didn't try to pick him up, didn't tell him to stop. She just breathed, loud enough for him to hear. Inhale, exhale, slow, rhythmic. In, out, she whispered. In, out. That's it, baby. We're safe. Mama's here. Micah flailed again. Amber reached forward, offering her hand, not forcing it. Like the ocean, baby, remember? Big waves in, big waves out. Wayne couldn't move. His back pressed to the wall like it held him upright. Micah's fists slowed. His gasps turned into shudders. Amber hummed, soft and steady. Micah crawled forward and folded into her lap like a storm into harbor. He sobbed, guttural, broken. But he was still. Amber cradled him, rocking gently, her own voice cracking as she whispered, You're okay, baby. You're still my joy. Wayne's eyes blurred. He hadn't cried since he was 11, not even at his father's funeral. Amber looked up. Their eyes met across the hallway. She didn't move, didn't speak. Wayne did something he hadn't done in years. He nodded, once. Amber's voice was barely above a whisper. You okay? Wayne tried to answer. His mouth moved, but nothing came out, so he nodded again. Amber smiled. Not a big one, not polite. Just real. He's not broken, she said softly. He just feels loud. Wayne blinked. Something burned in his chest. Not panic, not exactly. It was weight, but not the kind he was used to carrying. That night, he couldn't sleep. He replayed the moment over and over. Amber's calm, Micah's shaking hands, the sound of her voice holding the boy together like mortar. He thought about the way she'd said, safe, like it was something you could give, like it was a meal you could cook and serve hot. At 3:12 a.m., he left his room, walked barefoot to the kitchen. No lights, just the hum of the fridge. He opened a drawer, pulled out a sticky note, and stood there for a long time. Then he wrote, "You didn't scream. You didn't run. Thank you." He folded it twice and slid it under her door. The next morning, he found a plate on the island, warm, covered. A new sticky note sat on top. "You didn't either." He lifted the lid. Peach cobbler. Later that day, Wayne cancelled 3 meetings. He said his system was updating. It wasn't. He just couldn't think about software, not when his mind kept echoing the way Amber had looked at Micah. Like his volume didn't scare her. Like his pain wasn't shameful. At 6:08 p.m., he stood in the kitchen while Amber chopped onions. Micah was building towers with measuring cups. Wayne said nothing. Amber didn't look up, but her voice was soft when she asked, "You ever seen that before?" Wayne shook his head. "No." She nodded. "Ain't easy." Silence. Wayne asked, "What do you do when it doesn't stop?" Amber paused. "Chopped slower. You keep loving loud. That's all. You don't wait for it to end. You meet it where it is." Wayne stared at the knife in her hand, the way her fingers curled inward, the way she moved with purpose, precision, but not mechanical, not like him. She didn't move like a code. She moved like prayer. After dinner, Micah fell asleep on the couch mid-cartoon. Amber scooped him up with a grunt. "He's getting heavy," she muttered. Wayne stood awkwardly. "Need help?" Amber smiled. "You trying to carry a sleeping 5-year-old with stiff arms and no rhythm?" Wayne hesitated. "That would be a mistake." She laughed, a soft, round laugh, the kind that stuck to walls and made them feel less cold. Wayne watched them disappear down the hallway. For the first time, the silence in the penthouse didn't feel like comfort. It felt like waiting. Later that night, Wayne returned to the sticky note drawer. He took out 3 more, but he didn't write anything. He just held them, pressed flat between his palms. He didn't know what he was trying to say. He just knew that Amber had shifted something he didn't have language for yet. Wayne sees love modeled through Amber's care for Micah. He begins to associate emotion with safety, not disruption. If this moment touched you, leave a comment. Real love grows in unexpected places. Like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Comfort Stories, where silence finally meets its match. Wayne never made the decision out loud. No one asked him to. There was no memo, no internal software update. But the next morning, he didn't return to his office after breakfast. Instead, he sat on the bench near the hallway. From there, he could hear everything. The clatter of pans, Amber's voice narrating recipes like she was hosting her own Food Network show, Micah's joyful sound effects as he turned Tupperware into race cars. Wayne wasn't eavesdropping. Not exactly. He told himself he just needed a break. Just one day. But the day stretched into 2. Then a week. He started bringing his laptop to the kitchen island. No explanation. Just relocated. Amber noticed. Of course she did. But she never asked. She kept stirring. Kept teaching Micah how to crack eggs without shell bits. Kept humming. Wayne thought he recognized the tune once. Something his mother used to play when he was a child. He hadn't heard it in years. It didn't feel like nostalgia. It felt like presence. On Tuesday, Micah dropped a spoon mid-stir. It clanged, loud, piercing. Wayne flinched instinctively, but Micah didn't. He froze, looked up at Amber. She looked right back. Calm. Okay or not okay, baby? Micah lifted one hand. Half okay. Amber smiled. Half is better than zero. Let's breathe once. They both did. In, out. Wayne watched. Something inside him softened. At 2:13 p.m., Wayne had a standing meeting with the head of UI/X in London. But he rescheduled it, because Micah asked him to help build a fort out of couch pillows. This one's for the syrup queen, Micah declared, placing Amber's throw blanket over the top. Wayne blinked. Who? Micah pointed to his mother. She makes the syrup. She wins. Amber laughed. That's right. Bow down. Wayne gave a mock bow, stiff and awkward. Micah grinned. You're the marble king. You make the floor rules. Wayne tilted his head. The floor has rules? Duh, Micah said, dead serious. Tile 1 is for thinking. Tile 2 is for dancing. Tile 3 is for silly face breaks. Wayne stepped carefully. Which tile am I on now? Micah gasped. Silly face. Amber turned around just in time to see Wayne Whitmore, purse his lips, widen his eyes, and stick out his tongue in a slow, hesitant wobble. Micah howled with laughter. Amber? She didn't say a word, just looked at Wayne for one long beat, her eyes warm. Wayne felt his face heat, not from shame, from something he hadn't felt since his teen years, being seen and not judged. Later that night, Amber reheated leftovers and made a fresh salad with herbed vinaigrette. Wayne cleared his throat mid-bite. This is good. Amber raised an eyebrow. That's the first time you've said that. I didn't want to interrupt your narration, he said quietly. Amber chuckled. I talk to ghosts while I cook. You're not interrupting. You're just joining the congregation. Wayne tilted his head. You believe in ghosts? Amber smirked. Nah. But I believe recipes carry memories. Every stir remembers the last hand that stirred. Wayne blinked slowly. He didn't have a response. But something in him filed that sentence away. He'd never thought of food as anything but fuel. Never thought of motion as memory. Of cooking as conversation. The next day, Wayne joined Micah at the kitchen table again. Micah was coloring. Wayne opened his laptop, but didn't type. He watched instead. Amber moved between stove and sink like she was dancing to music only she could hear. She stirred, flipped, adjusted heat, all while humming Angel by Anita Baker. Wayne recognized it this time, not because he remembered the song, because it sounded like Amber. It sounded like how the kitchen felt. He closed his laptop. Micah looked up. You not working? Wayne hesitated. No, not right now. Micah handed him a crayon. Color with me? Wayne took the crayon, paused, then nodded. Yes. He drew a line. Micah giggled. That's a terrible pancake. Wayne blinked. It's not a pancake. It's a circle. Amber walked by, peered down. Well, it looks hungry. Give it syrup. Micah handed him the brown crayon. Here, save it. Wayne smiled. He hadn't drawn anything since high school art class, and even then, he'd failed. But sitting there, with syrup-colored crayons, a child's laugh, and the smell of bacon in the air, he didn't feel like he was failing. He felt like he was beginning. That night, he passed Amber in the hallway. They didn't speak, but as she walked by, she said softly, You're changing. Wayne stopped. Is that bad? Amber shook her head. No. But change is loud. You sure you're ready for that? He didn't answer, but her words echoed as he fell asleep. At 4:58 a.m., Wayne's alarm went off. He didn't get up. For the first time in years, he let it ring. Wayne trades control for presence. The door to transformation quietly swings open, not through declarations, but through crayons, syrup, and being seen. If this chapter reminded you that healing begins in the small, quiet places, comment. Real love grows in unexpected places. Share this with someone who's learning to love out loud. Subscribe to Mr. Comfort Stories, where even the untouched can find home. Wayne didn't officially change the house rules. He didn't declare a new routine. He didn't issue a notice to Amber or Micah, but something had shifted, and in that shift, so did everything else. He started waking up later, only by 10 minutes at first, then 15. His alarm still rang at 4:58 a.m. Sharp, but he'd stare at the ceiling now, allowing the silence to stretch longer. Sometimes he listened for Amber's early hums through the kitchen walls. Sometimes he thought about the moment Micah had handed him a crayon and called him the Marble King. Sometimes he just waited. For what? He didn't know. But the silence didn't scare him like it used to. It felt less like a fortress, more like a threshold. By the second Monday, Wayne began timing his movement with theirs. He didn't think of it that way, but it was clear in how his steps matched the rhythm of the kitchen. Amber would be whisking eggs by 7:10. Micah would be sliding onto his stool by 7:14. And Wayne would enter, without speaking, by 7:16. He never said good morning, but Amber would glance up and nod. Micah would yell, "He's here!" and the day would begin. One morning, Amber handed Micah a ladle and crouched beside him. "Baby, you want to help plate the pancakes?" Micah's eyes lit up. "Really?" Amber nodded. "Just the syrup. And only 3 drops each." Micah gave a salute. "I won't mess it up this time. I promise." Wayne raised an eyebrow. "This time?" Amber smirked. "Let's just say, we've had some syrup lakes in the past." Wayne blinked. "And you're letting him try again?" Amber shrugged. "How else does he learn?" Wayne didn't reply. He watched Micah pour the syrup with trembling precision. 1 drop. 2. A shaky 3rd. Then again. And again. Some of the pancakes ended up a little wetter than others. But when Amber clapped softly and said, "You did that, baby," Micah beamed, so brightly that Wayne couldn't stop the smile that crept across his face. Not a half smirk, not a polite upward twitch, a real smile. His cheek even ached a little from it. Amber caught the moment, just barely. She didn't say anything, but she turned back to the sink with a warmth in her eyes that didn't need words. After breakfast, Wayne stood beside the stove for no reason. Amber was cleaning the counter. Micah was coloring with a yellow marker on a paper towel. "Your system," Wayne said suddenly. Amber glanced at him. He pointed at her prep space. "You clean as you go. I've seen that before in culinary operations." Amber chuckled. "Culinary operations? You mean cooking?" Wayne blinked. "Yes, cooking." She smirked. "Yeah, well, my grandma said a messy kitchen was a sign of a messy heart. I try to keep both clear." Wayne considered that. He looked at her hands, quick, steady, gentle. Everything about Amber contradicted his idea of mess. And yet, nothing about her was robotic. She moved with grace, unscripted, but never chaotic. She was precise with soul. That night, Wayne changed his calendar settings. He removed 3 default meeting blocks, shifted 2 team check-ins to a synchronous format, not because he didn't care, but because, when he'd looked down at his schedule and realized he was about to miss Micah's pretend food judging competition, he felt something unfamiliar. Regret. Not the professional kind, the personal kind. The next day, Micah created a new title for Wayne, Chief Breakfast Inspector, CBI. The boy said seriously. "You get the badge and everything." Wayne raised an eyebrow. "Badge?" Micah handed him a sticker shaped like a star. Amber laughed from across the room. "He means business." Wayne looked down at the glittering sticker. It said, "Super Chef Helper," in rainbow letters. He peeled it slowly, pressed it to his shirt pocket, and sat down. Later that afternoon, Wayne found himself thinking, really thinking, about what a different life might look like. Not just occasional smiles, not just tolerating noise, but being part of it. He thought about a house with laughter, a kitchen with dancing, A Sunday night ritual that didn't involve spreadsheets. He thought about pancakes and presents, but he didn't say any of this. Words felt too dangerous, too final, so he stayed quiet. Amber didn't push, but she saw it. She saw the way he lingered after meals, the way he cleaned up Micah's drawings and laid them flat on the side counter instead of tossing them, the way he started bringing Micah a new marker each week, color-coded, of course. She didn't ask for explanation. She just made more pancakes. One Thursday, Micah asked, "Mr. Wayne, if we had a dog, what would we name it?" Wayne froze. "We don't have a dog." Micah shrugged. "I know, but if we did?" Wayne hesitated. Amber looked up from the sink. "Marble," Wayne said finally. Micah laughed. "Marble? That's silly." Amber wiped her hands. "I think it's brilliant. Now we just need a pretend leash." Micah sprinted down the hall. "I'll get my jump rope." Wayne blinked. Amber smiled. "Welcome to chaos, Mr. Whitmore." He didn't correct her. Not about the name, not about the chaos. He just stood there, letting the scent of butter and syrup settle around him like an unfamiliar peace. The invitation arrived in a grey envelope that looked like it belonged to another era, all crisp edges and carefully chosen paper. Wayne didn't usually receive handwritten notes. Most correspondence was digital, stripped of personality and padded with attachments. This felt deliberate. On the outside, in his mother's tidy script, it read, "Dinner, Friday, 7 p.m. Wayne turned the card over once, then twice. For a moment he considered leaving it unread, letting his calendar fill with other priorities. But the quiet he was learning to live in had made him strangely attentive to small disruptions. He slid the envelope into his pocket and set it on the counter where Amber could see it. She glanced at it while rinsing a dish. "She coming?" Wayne folded his hands together. "She is." Amber didn't respond. Instead, she rinsed the plate and set it to dry like she'd done 1,000 times. Micah was at the table practicing his letters in blocky, patient rows. The week moved with an undercurrent, a slow pull. Wayne found himself adjusting the lighting in the dining room that afternoon, testing the angle of a lamp, moving a vase an inch to the left. Small things, precise things. He had always controlled his environment through details. Tonight would be no different. Except it would be. On Friday at 6:30 p.m., Wayne stood in the doorway and watched Amber move with the kind of calm that had saved Micah's night. She arranged the plates with hands that rarely trembled, folding a napkin. With the same care, she folded the day's lessons into practice. "How long will you be here?" Micah asked, peering up at Amber. "Just long enough for Mama to say hello," Amber said, voice soft. She crouched and straightened Micah's collar, looking like a mother who had rehearsed her courage gently every morning. Micah took his place at the table with the unshakable confidence of a child who had found home. Wayne's mother arrived on time, precise heels clicking down the marble like punctuation. She wore a coat of pale grey and an expression that had, for as long as Wayne could remember, meant assessment. The smile she offered Amber was measured. She had not come to be charmed, she had come to evaluate. "Wayne," she said as she took his hand briefly before setting it aside. "Thank you for inviting me." "You're welcome, Mom," Wayne replied. His voice was steady, practiced. There was no tremor, but the silence that followed carried a pressure all the same. They sat. Napkins unfolded. Glasses filled. The first course arrived, a roasted carrot soup with a whisper of ginger. Something Amber had learned to make in a late-night recipe swap with her grandmother. It smelled like warmth and memory. Conversation opened with small talk. Weather. Stock options described in abstract phrases. Bits of Wayne's work that meant nothing to Amber, but were neatly dropped into the air like pebbles in a quiet pond. "You've made quite a change to the house," his mother said, eyes flicking from the centerpiece to the family calendar stuck on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a sun. "I'd say the design is warmer." Wayne's jaw tensed. "Amber's cooking makes the place feel lived in," he said. He didn't expect the heat in his own voice. It surprised him. His mother's gaze shifted to the suite door ajar to the hallway, where a shadow of a small head sometimes peeked at dinner. "And who occupies that suite?" Amber placed a hand over Micah's and said nothing. The space between acknowledgement and intrusion hung taut. Micah shrugged as if to say, "This is home," and picked at his soup, listening to adults talk like they were removing labels. Wayne's mother smiled, but it was the kind of smile that weighed what it revealed. "So he's part of the household." "He's part of the house," Wayne answered, slower than usual. The words did not feel rehearsed or forced. They felt true. A small scoff escaped his mother. "You never struck me as the domestic type, Wayne. You're a creature of systems and schedules. This arrangement is unconventional." Amber did not flinch. She simply set down her spoon and spoke in a voice that sat between the pacing of a child's calm and a woman's steady certainty. "We all have things we bring to a place," she said. "He brings joy in loud colors. I bring dinners that keep us warm at night. Wayne, he brings the roof." Her eyes met his when she said it, not pleading, not claiming, just stating. Wayne's mother pursed her lips. "And what happens when the roof needs fixing? A business can't survive on goodwill." The sentence landed like a stone. Wayne felt it in his chest. He had the facts to answer. He had balance sheets and investor memos, but the truth that sat under the numbers was louder tonight than any quarterly report. He thought of mornings he'd missed and the quiet he'd found in a child's drawing. He thought of sticky notes and peach cobbler, and the way Micah had called him a king. "You can't balance a life on paper alone," Wayne said. His voice quivered only a little. "Sometimes you have to choose what makes the house worthwhile." There was a pause. It was a small, heavy pause, the kind that collects a lifetime of judgment into a single inhale. His mother's hand tapped the rim of her glass, measured, controlled. "You're not thinking strategically," she said finally. "Investors don't like surprises. Stability has a value, Wayne. People will start asking questions." Amber put her fork down. She did not shift in place. She simply looked at Wayne with the soft, resolute gaze of someone whose life had been engineered by different metrics: love, presence, and the ability to stay when no one was watching. "Is this about work or about a woman who is feeding your family?" Amber asked, voice even. She made it almost rhetorical, but the question settled on the table like steam. Wayne felt his throat tighten. He had rehearsed this conversation in his head, a dozen ways to protect both sides, to present the compromise. But rehearsals fell flat when the moment demanded honesty. Wayne inhaled. "It's about both." His mother's lips pressed thin. "Be careful, Wayne. People see what they want. You're doing well. Don't tarnish it." Word choice mattered. It felt like a verdict. Wayne thought of the rooster-shaped magnet on the fridge. He thought of Micah's stuffed train waiting in a box under the bed. He thought of the sound of Amber's voice saying, "We're safe." He thought of repeating something he'd held sacred, order, and then realized he'd let it bend for something better. "I'm choosing," Wayne said, softer this time. "I'm choosing them." There was no trumpet, no celebratory noise, just the small intake of breath from his mother and the rustle of the napkin she folded over her lap, like an old armor. She looked at Amber, and in that look there was the weight of a woman who had spent decades in rooms where power meant maintaining distance. "You understand what you're stepping into," she said. "People will talk. They always do. This might affect your career. I only want you to be aware." "I'm aware," Wayne said. He'd been acutely aware for weeks, painfully aware. He had watched his calendar rearrange itself around therapy sessions, swimming classes, and pancake Sundays. He'd offered to pitch asynchronously and missed numbers that managers had taken note of. He had watched his board email criticize his emotional unpredictability and felt its coldness like winter. But awareness now sat next to conviction. His mother set her fork down. "Then I hope you know how to be resolute." Wayne nodded. He had no rehearsed speech to offer. Instead, he reached across the table, an action that felt enormous in its normalcy, and covered Amber's hand with his own. It was not a lover's reach. Not yet. It was a declaration woman could feel as plainly as the warmth of a bowl in front of her. Amber's hand did not withdraw. Micah looked up from his place and said matter-of-factly, "That's Mr. Wayne. He helps." A small, almost reluctant smile softened his mother's mouth. It did not absolve her skepticism. But she studied the way Wayne looked at Amber, not with the cool appraisal of a businessman, evaluating cost, but with something that used words like careful and keep and come home. Dinner ended in a generous quiet. There were goodbyes that were both polite and precise. Wayne's mother hugged him curtly, the way one might press a stamp onto a page. "Be careful," she said again as she left. When the door clicked shut, Amber exhaled. She had been a picture of grace through the entire meal, but the small tremor in her shoulders was real. Micah reached over and patted her knee, unaware of the politics that had just been tabled like the last plate. "You did good," Wayne told her softly. Amber looked at him. "You did the talking," Wayne swallowed. "I didn't say enough." Amber's smile was quick, real. "You said what mattered. That's usually better." They cleared the table together in a quiet partnership. Coffee cups clinked, napkins folded. Wayne found himself watching Amber the way a man might watch someone. Build a structure, with a clear eye for how pieces fit together. When they finished, Amber gathered Micah in her arms, turning him so his small face could be hidden against her shoulder. "You okay, baby?" she murmured. He nodded. "We okay." Wayne stood in the doorway for a long moment after. He felt the heat of the evening settle inside him like a new coat. It didn't fix anything immediate. The board review bloodied a corner of his life that wouldn't heal overnight, but the act of choosing felt like the first honest step of repair. Amber put a hand on his arm, once, light as dust. "You did something brave tonight." Wayne looked down at her hand. For a heartbeat, it felt like an anchor and a question at the same time. "What if they come knocking again?" he asked, quieter than he would have spoken a month prior. Amber's answer was unadorned. "Then you answer again." He believed her. It wasn't that problems ceased. It was that the tone of his life had changed, from one of isolated control to one of shared responsibility. The threshold he once feared was now a way in. He had stepped through, and although the road ahead would not be clean or easy, it would now be chosen. Wayne lay awake most of the night after his mother left. The hallway was dim, still. The refrigerator hummed. A lone red light blinked from the coffee machine, waiting to be useful again. He couldn't sleep, not because of what his mother had said, but because of what he hadn't. He had spoken up at dinner. Yes, he had said, "I'm choosing them," but something inside him still felt incomplete. Like the right sentence hadn't yet found its shape. The house felt full now, of sound, of scent, of Micah's crayon trails on the counter, but there was something he still hadn't offered. His language had always been code, his love, unspoken. He wasn't ready for a speech, but he could leave a note. At 2:42 a.m., Wayne padded barefoot to the kitchen drawer where Amber kept the pens. He found a small notepad with tiny fruit illustrations along the top. It didn't match him, which is why he chose it. He tore one sheet, smoothed it flat, and sat at the island. The same island where Micah had handed him the sticker badge, where Amber had served pancakes that rewired his definition of sweetness, where quiet moments had taught him the difference between routine and ritual. He stared at the blank note for 7 minutes, then wrote, "You made my world less grey. You didn't mean to, but you did. I'm still learning touch, still learning trust. But if I could hold one thing without fear, it would be your hand." He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. He folded the note once, neat, and walked down the hallway. He placed it on Amber's side of the kitchen island, just beneath the small magnet. Micah had drawn last week, a stick figure with glasses, arms wide, labeled Mr. Wayne. Then he turned and left. Amber found the note just after sunrise. She was reaching for the oat milk, trying not to trip over a rubber dinosaur Micah had left in the middle of the kitchen. Her eyes landed on the fruit paper, folded once, unassuming. Waiting. She hesitated. Amber Riley had received all kinds of notes in her life. Final notices, rent reminders, harsh words from people who didn't understand a black woman with a son who needed space and softness, not structure. But this one felt different in her hand. She opened it slowly. "Read it once," then again, then closed her eyes. She didn't cry right away. She just breathed. Long, deep. The kind of breath she took when the world was too loud and Micah needed her calm. This time, she was the one being steadied. She folded the note gently and tucked it behind the recipe card for banana pancakes. Micah's favorite. Then she got to work. Wayne walked into the kitchen at exactly 7:18 a.m. He had shaved, changed shirts twice, almost skipped his appearance altogether. But when he stepped into the space, he was met with the usual rhythm. Amber at the stove, moving like gospel. Micah seated at the table, coloring a page titled, "My Family with Deliberate Care." No mention of the note, no change in tone, just the same warmth. Wayne took his seat quietly. Amber served the plates one by one. 2 pancakes each, just enough syrup, scrambled eggs with chives and turkey bacon. Nothing was said, until she placed Wayne's plate down, and instead of turning away, placed her hand lightly on the table. Her fingers rested, just rested, close enough to brush his. Then she looked at him, eyes steady, not questioning, not demanding, just there. Wayne stared at the space between their hands. It wasn't much, an inch, maybe less. His throat tightened. Micah hummed from his chair. Amber kept her hands still. Wayne didn't speak, didn't calculate the risk. He reached. His fingers touched hers, gently, tentatively. She didn't pull away. She curled her pinky around his. For Wayne Whitmore, 34, controlled, untouched, this was an earthquake in slow motion, not loud, but devastating. He looked at their linked fingers and felt something he hadn't known he could feel, peace. Not the cold, sterile peace he'd once mistaken for comfort, but the kind that comes when you stop holding your breath. Amber's voice was soft. "Cinnamon's a little heavy this morning." Micah poured. Wayne blinked. Then, for the second time in 2 weeks, he smiled. Micah looked up. "Mr. Wayne, Mama let me stir the syrup this time. Only 2 stirs." Amber laughed. "Because last time you stirred 12 and it turned into syrup soup." Wayne tilted his head. "That explains the texture." Micah nodded. "It's still good, though." Wayne took a bite. It was. Later that day, Amber found a small sticky note near the dish rack. Another fruit-themed one. Just 4 words, written in Wayne's unmistakable block letters. "Thank you for staying." She smiled. Didn't respond. But that night, after dinner, she handed Wayne a plate of cornbread and whispered, "Thank you for asking." It was a Sunday when Wayne updated the family calendar. Not the one in his office, his real calendar, the one Amber kept magnetized, on the fridge next to Micah's drawing of Pancake Planet. He stood with a dry erase marker in his hand, staring at the week ahead like he was coding it into existence. Monday, Amber's gumbo night. Tuesday, Micah's therapy. Wednesday, Wayne's Zoom call with investors, blocked from 3 to 3:20 only. Thursday, pancake ingredient shopping. Friday, no meetings. Saturday, library run. Sunday, pancake voting night. Amber stood behind him with her arms crossed, watching. "You sure you want to put pancake voting in permanent marker?" she asked. Wayne glanced over his shoulder. "It's not permanent. That's dry erase." "Yeah," she smirked. "But that marker's black. Black ink don't play." He turned back to the board. "Then we'll just vote wisely." Micah burst out laughing from the kitchen table. "We voted for banana chocolate swirl last time, and Mama made it look like oatmeal." Amber gave him a look. "You still ate 4. "I had to," Micah said dramatically. Mr. Wayne put syrup on his eggs. "I had to balance the plate." Wayne blinked. "That was one time." Amber raised a brow. "It was a sin, Wayne, but a forgivable one." He tried not to smile. He failed. Wayne didn't realize how deeply the rituals had embedded themselves into his schedule. Until one of his engineers asked, "Should we push the Tuesday sprint meeting to 4? And he instinctively said, "No. That's therapy day." There was a pause on the call, then a quiet "oh." "For you?" Wayne cleared his throat. No, Micah. Another pause. Then silence. He hadn't planned to share that, but he hadn't regretted it either. Micah had started referring to the penthouse as home in passing. It wasn't dramatic. There was no momentous declaration. He just said it one morning while brushing jelly onto a piece of toast. "Mr. Wayne, when we go to the library, can we stop by home first to get my other library card?" Amber, across the kitchen, stilled, just for a second. Wayne didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Amber had added new ingredients to the house shopping list: cumin, fresh mint, cornmeal, almond milk, sticky notes, and one thing that made Wayne pause. Micah's drawing pad, the big one. He stared at that parenthetical for 10 seconds before underlining it with a red pen. He didn't say anything. He just bought 2. He didn't see the message coming. It arrived on Thursday evening, right as Micah was singing about the fictional cinnamon syrup dance party he was planning to start in his room. Amber was laughing, pressing rice into a pot with a wooden spoon, when Wayne's phone vibrated against the counter. He flipped it over. His company email. Subject: Leadership Stability and Internal Optics Review. Board memo. His chest tightened. He didn't open it immediately. Instead, he set his phone face down and watched Micah swirl around the table. "Baby," Amber said, "don't knock over the syrup again." Micah skidded to a stop. Okay. I'm just rehearsing." Wayne cleared his throat. "For what?" "For my dance show," Micah said. "On Sunday. You have to come." Wayne hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be there." That night, after Micah was asleep and the house was quiet, Wayne opened the email. The words were clean, professional, cold. "Concerns have been raised regarding recent deviations in CEO schedule, lack of visibility in corporate settings, shifts in professional tone observed by key partners, employee morale influenced by perceived domestic preoccupations, potential emotional compromise." His stomach twisted. One sentence stood out, bolded and underlined. "We have reason to question whether Mr. Whitmore's current living arrangement and emotional entanglement are impacting decision-making clarity." He leaned back in the chair. The silence around him felt different tonight. Not peaceful, just empty. Amber found him the next morning standing at the window, coffee mug in hand, untouched. "Didn't sleep?" she asked, gently. "No." She waited, didn't push. Micah came bouncing in 2 minutes later in mismatched socks and a shirt that read CEO of Snacks. He pointed to the counter. "Did you eat the last apple muffin?" Wayne blinked. "No." Micah grinned. "Good. I was about to make a citizen's arrest." Amber laughed and handed Wayne his real breakfast, banana oatmeal with a cinnamon drizzle and a blueberry smiley face Micah had arranged himself. Wayne looked down at the face, then up at Amber. "Thank you." Her eyes met his, steady, warm, curious, but she didn't ask. At 11:05 a.m., Wayne shut the door to his office and reopened the email. He read it 5 times. He pulled up the meeting schedule. The board wanted a full review next week. He was expected to address concerns. He was expected to be sharp, unattached, optimized. He stared at the calendar on his wall. Pancake Sunday had a star on it now, Micah's star sticker, right above Banana Swirl Redux. Wayne closed his eyes. He had built everything to stay clear, sharp, alone. But now Micah's bedtime stories were on his Outlook blocks. Now Amber's cornbread occupied a column in his diet tracking app. Now laughter echoed in places once sealed by silence. And the board wanted him to pick a side. When Amber knocked on the office door at 2:30 with a small Tupperware of shrimp and grits, Wayne thanked her with a quiet, "Leave it there." She didn't reply, but the door stayed open a sliver after she left. That sliver felt like a mirror. Wayne sat there, still, unmoving, wondering if he'd been building a foundation or just decorating a distraction. Amber wasn't snooping. She had only meant to move the papers off the counter so Micah could paint. The printer had jammed earlier that morning, and Wayne had left a stack of printed documents in the kitchen, right where the paint cups usually went. She reached for them quickly, ready to tuck them beside the microwave, when the header caught her eye. Internal Board Memorandum, CEO Stability Review. Her hand stopped. It wasn't just the title. It was the bolded subheading underneath. Concerns over domestic distraction and emotional compromise. Amber didn't need to read the rest. She had heard enough versions of it in her life, too personal, too emotional, too much, too black, too mother, too present. She swallowed hard, folded the papers neatly, and placed them where she found them. Micah had chosen yellow and orange paint. He was trying to make pancakes with syrup fire. Amber bent to kiss his forehead and said nothing. That evening, the air in the penthouse was off. The lights were the same. The food still smelled like a celebration. Baked chicken, rosemary potatoes, sautéed greens. Micah's voice still bounced from wall to wall. But Wayne? Wayne was stiff. He hadn't said more than 10 words since lunch. He barely touched his plate. When Amber offered him seconds, he didn't even look up. Just said, "I'm good." That alone told her everything. At 8:15 p.m., Amber gave Micah a warm bath and rubbed his scalp with lavender oil. He liked the calm of it. Liked when she hummed while towel drying his hair. "Can we make cinnamon pancakes tomorrow?" he asked, sleepy. Amber smiled. "Maybe, even if Mr. Wayne goes to his meeting." She froze. Micah turned, eyes innocent. "I heard him say he might not be here." Amber tucked the towel tighter around him. "We'll make something, even if it's just toast." At 9:03 p.m., she stepped into the kitchen. Wayne was at the sink, washing a fork like it had insulted him. She stood at the island, quiet, still. "I saw the memo," she said gently. Wayne didn't turn. Amber waited. "You weren't supposed to," he finally replied. "I didn't mean to." Silence. "You think we're a distraction?" she asked. His hands stilled. Water kept running. "It's what they think." "That's not what I asked." He turned off the faucet, dried the fork with surgical precision, then turned slowly. His eyes were unreadable, but his voice, cool, controlled, familiar in a way she hadn't heard in weeks. "This situation, it's not sustainable." Amber's heart clenched. "This situation?" she repeated. Wayne said nothing. Amber nodded slowly. "I see." There was no screaming, no slamming doors, no dramatic scene. Amber just walked to the hallway, past Micah's crayons, past the pancake calendar with the star sticker, and into their suite. She shut the door softly behind her. Micah was curled up in bed with his stuffed train. Amber sat at the edge and stroked his hair. "You okay, Mama?" She kissed his cheek. "We're going to pack some things tomorrow." Micah sat up. "Are we going on a trip?" Her voice cracked. "Something like that. Will Mr. Wayne come?" Amber blinked. "Not this time." Micah frowned. "But he said he liked our pancakes." She swallowed. "He does, baby. But sometimes, even people who like you can't stay. And that's not your fault." She packed light. Just one bag. Left the artwork. Left the sticky notes. Left the cornbread dish on the counter, clean. At sunrise, she made coffee. 1 cup. Hers. Then another. She poured it into Wayne's favorite mug. The plain grey one, he said, made the brew taste neutral. She set it on the island. Next to it, a folded note. "You needed to choose. And you froze. I get it. But my son can't be a question mark in someone's success story. We were home. You just didn't say it out loud in time. She left the keycard next to the note. Micah didn't talk on the way out. Amber carried his small backpack and held his hand tightly. The elevator felt colder than it had in weeks. As the doors closed, Micah whispered, "He was learning." Amber squeezed his hand. "I know, baby." At 8:45 a.m., Wayne walked into the kitchen. He smelled the coffee before he saw it. He paused. 2 mugs. Only one full. A note beside the other. He read it once, then again, then sat. He didn't sip the coffee, just stared at the place where her name was signed with a single letter. The apartment was clean, too clean. The suite door was wide open. No sound of cartoons, no scent of cocoa butter, no chatter about syrup dance parties. Just stillness, the kind that didn't soothe, the kind that punished. Wayne stood in the doorway of Micah's now empty room. A small paper star had fallen on the floor. He picked it up. Micah had written Library Day on it in crooked letters. Wayne's hand shook. He walked into his office, pulled up the board email, reread it. Domestic distraction, emotional compromise, living arrangement in question. He looked at the corner of the screen where the pancake voting reminder still lived. He clicked dismiss and hated himself for it. He didn't eat that day, didn't code, didn't reply to Kendra's messages asking if he'd finalized the third quarter projections. At 3:17 p.m. he opened a blank note and tried to write an apology. He got to the word amber and stopped. There was no version of this that wouldn't come too late. At 6:20 p.m. Wayne opened the fridge and saw Micah's last syrup bottle, the one with the little face sticker on the cap. He closed the fridge and leaned against the counter. And for the first time in over 2 decades, he cried. The morning after Amber left, Wayne stood in the center of his penthouse with his hands in his pockets and a room full of quiet screaming around him. The clock ticked. The fridge hummed. The echo of laughter that used to bounce from the kitchen to the hallway had been replaced by nothing but marble and memory. The syrup bottle was still on the counter. Micah's last drawing, a crooked pancake planet floating in syrup stars, lay half-peeled from the fridge. Wayne didn't touch it. He couldn't. He opened his laptop at 9 a.m. sharp. He stared at the blinking cursor on his board presentation file, the one titled Strategic Expansion to CEO Vision 2025. He had updated the graphics last week, had even changed the color palette to include warmer tones. Amber had helped him pick them. Now, the oranges looked dull, the golds like rust. He closed the file. Kendra called twice that morning, then texted, "Need your notes for the board review. Don't forget to lead with confidence. You've done bigger things than this." Wayne read the message and felt his stomach churn. Not because he feared the meeting, but because confidence was the one thing he couldn't fake anymore. At 11:04 a.m., he sat on the kitchen stool, the one Micah always claimed first, and stared at the wall. Amber had once said, "You clean as you go." But he hadn't cleaned this right. He had paused, hesitated, made her choose her dignity over begging, and now the apartment smelled sterile again. Cinnamon no longer lived here. Neither did warmth. At 1:30 p.m., Wayne put on a blazer that felt too tight around the neck and logged into the conference room call. 13 faces blinked onto the screen, clean and unfeeling in their resolution. The chair opened the session with his usual clipped tone. "We'll begin with Wayne's self-assessment." Wayne looked down at his notes. They read, "CEO must anchor vision. Visibility plus efficiency equal to trust. Personal variables equal to managed risk." He stared at the page, then slowly turned it over. He began, "We hit revenue targets this quarter, but our trust indicators dipped in Asia due to delays in visualization updates." He heard himself speak, felt the words float above him like a stranger's vocabulary. Someone else in his body, someone mimicking a man in control. One board member, unmuted. "Wayne, several internal concerns have been raised regarding your availability and personal stability. Would you care to address those?" Wayne blinked. The silence of his kitchen was suddenly louder than the voices in the room. He cleared his throat. "I've made adjustments in recent months." More silence. Another voice, colder. "Are these adjustments temporary or permanent?" Wayne froze. Micah's voice echoed in his head. "We voted for banana swirl." Amber's hand brushing his at breakfast. Her note, "We were home. You just didn't say it out loud in time." He swallowed. "Some changes are permanent," he said quietly. Another voice, "Is your current personal situation affecting your ability to lead at the highest level?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The silence dragged. The chair clicked his pen. We'll move forward with a recommendation of internal monitoring over the next quarter. He heard it. They didn't fire him, but they weren't trusting him either. They had clipped his wings and handed him back the cage. After the meeting ended, Wayne didn't shut the laptop. He just sat there, still, numb, until the call timed out and the screen turned black. At 4:15 p.m., he walked back to the kitchen, opened the fridge, stared inside. Amber's labels were still on the containers. Micah's banana emergency stash was untouched. He sat on the floor, back against the cabinet, and let his breath break in half. He thought of every small moment he had treated like optional, every story time he had joined late, every question Amber had asked that he answered with silence, every time she had waited for reassurance he never gave, every smile Micah had thrown his way, hoping it would stick. He had been present, yes, but he had not been brave. And now? Now, the space where their laughter lived was hollow. At 5:30 p.m., Wayne walked to the suite hallway. He turned the knob. Amber's room was still made, the blanket folded the way she always did it, corner to corner, not top down. She said it tucked peace in. Micah's art supplies were gone, but one crayon was still under the dresser, blue, his favorite. Wayne picked it up and closed his hand around it like it was sacred. That night, he tried to sleep. He couldn't. He lay on the couch, the place where Micah had once watched cartoons upside down. He watched the ceiling, counted the spaces between the lights, remembered how Amber had once joked about rearranging the bulbs to make a smiley face. He had said no, he would have said yes now. At 2:02 a.m., Wayne opened his journal, the one he hadn't touched in months. He wrote, "The day she left, the silence didn't comfort me. It punished me. I thought I was building a system, but I was being built by them. And when I failed to say it out loud, they became the echo. Father, heal the wounds that silence left. Let this man find the courage to speak where he once walked away. And if love still lives here, let it speak not in grand gestures, but in the small, humble steps that say, I'm learning. Amen." Welcome back to Mr. Comfort Stories, your home of comfort, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. It had been 17 days since Amber left. 17 mornings, Wayne Whitmore woke to the hollow hush of marble that didn't echo with footsteps that weren't his. No tiny sneakers padding toward the kitchen. No off-key hum of Amber wiping down the counters. No laughter. Not even tension. Just absence. Wayne hadn't touched the stove since they left. The fridge still held half the bottle of almond milk Amber had bought on her last grocery run. A single spoon still lay drying on the rack beside the sink, untouched, though he'd stared at it for long minutes each morning. He couldn't bring himself to move it. The board had stopped asking questions after he submitted the latest report. It was clean, clinical, almost cold. It impressed them, but it didn't impress him. He didn't want to be the man who impressed his board. He wanted to be the man Micah called train station as he toddled across the marble. He wanted to be the man who knew which syrup Amber preferred on her pancakes. He just didn't know if she wanted him back. That morning, he dressed differently. Not the navy-tailored suit he'd worn every day since she left. Today, he wore jeans, a plain white shirt, no watch, no phone. He left it all on the kitchen counter and drove with one thing in the passenger seat, a small brown box wrapped in tissue paper. Liberty City was alive in ways his penthouse never would be. Children darted between fences. A woman sold mango slices at the corner. Men laughed over open trunks of dusty cars. Life didn't wait for perfection here. It just breathed. Wayne parked across the street from Amber's building and sat in his car for nearly 30 minutes. He saw her through the window, barely. She was washing something at the sink, back turned. Her curls bounced slightly as she moved. She didn't hum like she used to. When the front door finally opened and she stepped out with a bag of trash, Wayne's chest tightened. It was the same red hoodie she wore the first day they met. Her sneakers were worn at the soles. Her eyes, when she turned, held quiet shock, then immediate caution. She stopped midway down the steps. Wayne exited the car without rushing. The box was in his hands. He didn't speak right away, just walked toward her, slowly, like approaching a bird that might fly away. She didn't speak either. Her eyes flickered to the box, then to his clothes, then to his face. He stopped 2 feet from her. "I didn't come here to fix anything," he said quietly. "I came here because you deserve something I didn't give you the first time. Clarity." Amber's arms folded protectively, not angrily, but with the weariness of someone who had learned not to expect much from apologies. Wayne set the box on the step between them and knelt, not with a grand flourish, not on both knees like a proposal, but one knee, humble, simple. His eyes stayed steady on hers. "This isn't for Micah," he said, motioning to the box. "It's for both of you." Amber hesitated before slowly lowering herself to sit on the top step, trash bag forgotten. "I called what we had a distraction," he said, voice thick. "At the board meeting. I repeated it when I panicked. But I lied." Amber looked at him, arms still folded. "You weren't a distraction," he said. "You were the answer. The reason the house had life, the reason I ever laughed at breakfast, the reason I started imagining something more than quarterly earnings." She didn't speak, but her hands dropped to her lap. Wayne reached for the box and opened it between them. Inside, cushioned in soft tissue, was a toy train Micah had pointed to in a store window the last week they'd lived with Wayne. A little red engine with a black roof and silver wheels. Not plastic, wooden. "I saw this and thought of him. Not because he needs another toy," Wayne added, voice lowering, "but because I didn't get to say goodbye." Amber's shoulders trembled. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. "He cried when you didn't say bye," she whispered. Wayne's jaw clenched. I didn't know how to say goodbye to something I didn't want to end," he said, "and I didn't want to confuse him if I didn't come back. I thought walking away clean would hurt less than showing my mess." He shook his head. "But that was about me, not you, not Micah. And I've learned something, Amber." She waited. "Clean exits are for people who don't care." "I cared. I care. I just didn't know how to stay." The silence between them wasn't sharp. It was soft, sad. Amber finally reached into the box and gently lifted the train. Her fingers trembled. "He's been lining up forks on the windowsill again," she said softly. Wayne blinked. "The train station?" She nodded. They both smiled. Brief, painful, but real. "I'm not asking to come back," Wayne said. "I'm asking if I can show up, as me, not as the man with the penthouse. Just the man who finally knows what home feels like." Amber looked down at the train, then at the man still kneeling beside the box. The Wayne who didn't wear perfection today. The Wayne who looked more like someone healing than someone pretending. "I'm not promising anything," she said. "I don't expect you to." She exhaled slowly. "I just need you to be what you say, not what you think I want." Wayne nodded. "I will." He stood slowly, hands at his side, not reaching, not pushing. "Can I bring him pancakes tomorrow?" he asked. Amber gave the smallest nod. "Messy ones," she said. "No syrup science." Wayne smiled. "For you or him?" Her eyes crinkled, and for the first time in weeks, they shared something other than pain. "Both," she whispered. As Wayne walked back to his car, he didn't look back. He didn't have to. Behind him, Amber watched him go, the toy train in her lap. She didn't smile. Not yet. But she didn't close the door either. The next morning, Liberty City smelled like rain. The skies were grey, but not threatening, and the pavement glistened from a light overnight drizzle. Wayne Whitmore stood at the curb, brown paper bag in one hand, umbrella in the other. He wore sneakers, real sneakers, not the designer kind. His button-down shirt was creased. And for once, he didn't care. He didn't buzz the gate. He waited. At 8:07 a.m., Amber opened the door, slowly, cautiously. She wore a simple head wrap, oversized sweatshirt, and sleep still in her eyes. Micah peeked out from behind her, fingers gripping her thigh like a shy raccoon. Wayne raised the bag. "No syrup science today," he said. Micah's eyes went wide. Pancakes? Wayne bent down. Messy ones. Banana and chocolate chip. Micah looked up at Amber. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. Wayne walked into a different version of the home he'd seen weeks before. The same furniture, the same walls, but now he noticed more. The torn edge of the couch where Micah must have picked at fabric, the squeaky floorboard near the hallway, a drawing of a train station made in crayon, taped crooked on the wall. Home, not curated, not flawless, just lived in. He followed Amber to the kitchen, placed the bag on the counter, and pulled out a small non-stick pan, a mixing bowl, and 2 plates with colorful plastic forks. The silence wasn't awkward, it was watchful. Micah ran to his play corner, picked up his new red wooden train, and began humming. Amber leaned against the fridge, watching. Wayne cracked the eggs too fast and splashed yolk on the counter. "I'm learning," he muttered. She handed him a dishcloth without a word. He dropped a spoon, forgot baking powder, and burned the first pancake. Micah giggled every time Wayne muttered under his breath. "You say funny words," Micah said, crawling onto a stool. Wayne handed him a triangle of pancake. "I only use them when I burn breakfast," he replied. Micah stuffed his mouth full. "This is good." Wayne beamed like a toddler earning a sticker. Amber finally took a seat across from her son, resting her chin in her hand. "You cook better when you're not trying so hard," she said. "I live better that way too," Wayne replied. The next few days followed no pattern. And that was the pattern. Wayne would show up unannounced but never intrusive. Some days with a toy car, other days with a book about trains. He never stayed too long, never sat in her chair, never asked for anything. But he always noticed something new. Micah's new phrase of the week was beep, beep, tunnel. Amber's braid count changed every few days. The corner store always ran out of almond milk on Wednesdays. These were small details, but to Wayne they were sacred. One afternoon, Wayne accompanied Amber and Micah to therapy. It was a cramped office, full of sensory mats, beanbags and murals painted by children. The therapist was a kind woman named Miss Trina, who greeted Amber like an old friend. "You're the dad?" she asked Wayne. Amber tensed. Wayne didn't flinch. "No. I'm learning to be present." Miss Trina raised an eyebrow, smiled and nodded. They sat in the corner while Micah worked with blocks. At one point, he had a meltdown when a red one didn't stack properly. Amber started to rise, but Wayne gently touched her hand. "Let me try." He walked over, sat cross-legged beside Micah, and picked up the block. "It's being stubborn," he said. Micah sniffled. "It won't go." Wayne held it sideways. "Maybe it's not meant to go that way. Can I try it like this?" Micah hesitated, nodded. Wayne placed it gently on its side. It fit. Micah's face lit up. It worked. Wayne grinned. Sometimes when something doesn't work, it just needs a new way. Or a little help. Amber watched from her chair. That night, she walked Wayne to his car. The air smelled like fried chicken and wet soil. The street lamps flickered lazily. He leaned against his door. "I don't know where this is going," she said. "And I'm not in a rush." "I'm not here to rush," Wayne replied. "I'm here to relearn the alphabet if I have to." Amber smirked. "Then start with a for almond milk," Wayne chuckled. "I already checked. They restocked today." The following Sunday, Wayne stayed for bedtime stories. Micah insisted on reading the one about the talking train 3 times. He curled up in Amber's lap, clutching Wayne's finger as if to make sure he wouldn't disappear. After Micah fell asleep, Amber and Wayne sat in the living room. Not close, not apart, just still. "I used to think love meant being first," Wayne said suddenly. Amber tilted her head. "First in someone's life, first on their mind, first priority." He looked down at his hands. "But now I think love means learning to come second or third, behind their peace, their child, their healing, and being okay with that." Amber didn't speak, but she didn't look away. "I don't want to take up space that isn't mine," he said, "but I want to be worthy of the space you give." Amber stood slowly, walked to the kitchen, and returned with a folded dish towel. She handed it to him. "For tomorrow's pancakes," she said. He smiled and took it like it was made of gold. They didn't hug. They didn't kiss. They didn't call it anything. But Wayne left knowing that presence, quiet, consistent presence, was louder than any promise. 2 weeks had passed since Wayne Whitmore first showed up with a toy train and a bag of poorly made pancakes. Now, his pancakes were a little less burnt. His ties stayed in the closet, and Liberty City had become more familiar than his own penthouse in Brickell. Micah had started drawing pictures that included Wayne. Stick figures, of course, sometimes holding trains, sometimes holding pancakes, but always smiling. Amber hadn't said she forgave him. She hadn't even called it rebuilding, but she allowed space, and Wayne honored every inch of it. He never overstepped, never slept over, never tried to force what once slipped through his hands like wet sand. Instead, he showed up with his whole self. He swept the kitchen after dinner. He folded towels while Micah sang made-up songs about syrup. He learned how to sit still and let silence do the speaking. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, while Amber was folding laundry, Wayne walked into the apartment holding a small silver box. It wasn't wrapped in fancy paper, no ribbon, no branding, just the plain, quiet kind of box that asked to be opened with care. He placed it on the coffee table and sat down beside it, across from Amber. She looked at it, then at him. "What's this?" she asked softly. He didn't answer, just nodded toward it. Amber wiped her hands on a towel, walked over, and opened the box. The first item inside was a photograph, a printed 4x6 snapshot, Micah lying on the marble floor of Wayne's penthouse, his hands tracing the patterns, his eyes wide and curious. The photo had been taken on a quiet day, before everything crumbled, before the storm. Amber held it in her hand, like it was made of glass. She remembered that day. Micah had called the marble the Pancake River. Wayne had just stood there, watching, silent, unsure. And now, this memory had been framed in permanence. The second item in the box was a recipe card. Handwritten, not typed, not copied. Wayne's neat, slightly slanted handwriting read, "First pancakes, forever pancakes. Ingredients, 1 cup messy effort. 2 eggs cracked with nervous hands. 1 smashed banana, optional but loved, a dash of patience. Chocolate chips from Micah's secret stash, flip with care. Serve with laughter. Best enjoyed with family. Do not refrigerate guilt. Let it melt." Amber blinked quickly, then looked at him. "I rewrote it a dozen times," Wayne said, "but this one felt the most honest." Amber folded the card and placed it beside the photo. Then she saw the final item, a single silver key. No tag, no keychain, just 1 key. She stared at it. "I know you don't need rescuing," Wayne said. "This isn't some symbol of power or possession." He leaned forward, voice steady. "It's not a key to a mansion. It's a key to partnership. If you ever want to use it." Amber didn't move. "This isn't a proposal," he added. "I won't insult what we're rebuilding with grand gestures." He exhaled. "I'm not giving you this key because I want you to move in. I'm giving it to you because I want you to know the door is open, and always will be." Silence, long, not tense, just heavy with meaning. Micah came running into the room, his feet pounding against the floor. He held up a wooden spoon. "Mommy, I found the treasure spoon. We can stir the chocolate now." Amber's eyes didn't leave Wayne. She picked up the key, held it tightly for a second, then said nothing. She walked to the kitchen, holding Micah's hand, and placed the key inside the drawer next to the spatulas. Not in a jewelry box, not in a safe. In the drawer she opened every morning when she made pancakes. Wayne stood. He didn't ask for a hug, didn't wait for a speech. He simply nodded, walked to the door and said, "See you Sunday." Amber turned slightly. "You're bringing the bananas." He smiled, stepped out, and let the screen door close behind him. That Sunday, Wayne showed up with 3 bananas, chocolate chips, and almond milk. Micah opened the door before Amber could even get there. "Did you bring the yellow?" Wayne held up the bananas. "Triple yellow trouble, reporting for duty." Amber tried not to smile as she tied her apron. Wayne reached into his back pocket and pulled out a new dish towel. On it was embroidered in small letters, "Forever Pancakes." "Got this stitched yesterday," he said. "Found a little shop near Calle Ocho." Amber took it wordlessly, folded it, and placed it on the counter. As they mixed the batter, Micah stood on a stool between them. He held the spoon like a sword, fiercely stirring as Wayne poured and Amber flipped. They laughed. They burned the second batch again. They danced when the chocolate melted perfectly into the third one. At one point, Amber wiped a smear of batter from Wayne's cheek with her thumb. He didn't flinch, and she didn't pull back. After breakfast, while Micah played on the floor with his trains, Wayne and Amber sat on the couch. The drawer remained closed, but the key was inside. Amber leaned her head slightly toward him. "You know," she said, "you've changed." Wayne shrugged. "You call it change. I call it remembering what matters." She looked at him, not in a romantic way, not in a tragic way, but in a real way. "You were never the mansion," she said. Wayne turned. "You were the hallway. The one we had to walk through, mess and all, to find the rooms worth living in." He swallowed. "I can live with that." Micah's train made a loud choo-choo sound as it crashed into a pillow. Amber laughed, and this time so did Wayne. Not a forced laugh, not a rich man's chuckle, a laugh from the belly. The ribs, the boy he used to be. Amber didn't say she accepted the key. She didn't need to. She had cooked with it in the drawer, and for now, that was enough. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of morning where the world didn't feel rushed. No board meetings, no judgmental emails, no schedules ticking in the background, just the smell of pancakes sizzling, the clink of a fork against a ceramic plate, and the soft sound of Micah's feet pattering on the penthouse marble. Amber stood barefoot at the stove, her curls wrapped up in a messy bun, syrup, already drizzling from the countertop where Micah had tried to pour it himself. Wayne stood across from her, shirt untucked, no shoes, just a man in flannel pajama pants who no longer cared how he looked, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. "More syrup, Mummy," Micah shouted, his mouth sticky and fingers shinier than glass. Amber turned, smiling. "Micah, baby, your pancakes are drowning. Let them breathe." Micah giggled, sticking his fingers into his mouth, unconcerned. Wayne chuckled softly, his arms crossed as he leaned against the kitchen counter. "He eats pancakes like it's a form of art. He's got style," Amber replied, sliding another pancake onto a plate. She turned to hand it to Wayne, and for a moment, their hands touched. It was a brush, a graze, but the energy behind it pulsed like thunder in Wayne's chest. Amber didn't move her hand immediately. Neither did Wayne. She looked up at him, eyes soft. There was no question, no awkwardness, just quiet. The space between them thinned. Wayne slowly stepped closer, unsure if he was trembling or just waking up to the gravity of this moment. "Amber." She set the plate down and stood up straighter. "Yeah? I've never—" He paused, his throat tightening. "I don't know how to do this." Amber tilted her head. "How to do what?" His voice was low, honest, feel, touch. "Let someone see me." Amber stepped forward. "Then don't do it the way you think it's supposed to be done. Do it the way it's real for you." Wayne exhaled through his nose. "I'm scared." "I'm not," she whispered. And then, there was no grand music, no fireworks, just the hush of syrup cooling on the counter, and the sacred sound of two souls meeting for the first time beyond words. Wayne leaned in. Amber closed the distance. Their lips touched. It was slow, tender, unsure at first, but pure. Amber's hand gently rested against his jaw. Wayne didn't flinch, didn't back away. He leaned in deeper, allowing the weight of her touch to anchor him, not threaten him. He kissed her back. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't rehearsed. It was discovery. A man who had been untouched for 34 years, finally tasting the warmth of someone who didn't want his money or his last name, just him. When they pulled apart, their foreheads stayed touching. Wayne whispered, "So, that's what it feels like." Amber smiled. "Yeah. And there's more where that came from." Before they could say anything else, Micah came running toward them holding a pancake with 2 tiny plastic action figures stuck inside it. "Look, my pancake fighters." Amber laughed, turning to him. "Micah." "What?" But Wayne bent down, scooping Micah up with surprising ease, his lips still tingling from the kiss, his eyes still searching Amber's. Micah looked at them, then at Wayne. "You're my daddy now, right?" Wayne's breath caught. "What?" "Because you kiss Mommy, and you make pancakes, and you live here. Daddies do that." Wayne didn't know what to say. He blinked again. Micah took Wayne's hand and placed it on his small chest. "That means you're my heart now." Amber's lips trembled as she turned away for a second, pretending to clean the counter, blinking back the emotion swelling in her chest. Wayne sat down on the stool, Micah still in his arms, and nodded slowly. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, I'm your heart now." And then something broke inside him. Tears. Hot, unexpected tears. They spilled before he could catch them. Not from sadness, not from pain, but from the quiet, overwhelming beauty of being accepted, of hearing the one word he never thought would belong to him. "Dad." Amber walked over with a kitchen towel and gently wiped his cheek. "You okay?" she asked softly. He nodded, barely able to speak. "I've never been called that before." "Well," Amber said, her voice warm and sure, "get used to it. Because you've earned it." They stayed like that for a while, Micah on Wayne's lap, chewing syrup-soaked bites, unaware he had just opened a floodgate. Amber resting her hand on Wayne's shoulder, steady and strong. And Wayne? He was no longer hiding, he was becoming. Later that afternoon, as the clouds curled around the Miami skyline, Wayne found himself walking, barefoot across the living room, stepping carefully around building blocks and pancake crumbs. Amber was on the couch, sipping tea, her legs tucked under her. She looked peaceful, like a woman who had fought battles and built peace with her bare hands. Wayne stood behind the couch for a moment before speaking. "I don't think I know what love is supposed to look like." Amber glanced up. "Me neither." He came around and sat next to her, just close enough for their shoulders to touch. "But," she continued, "I think it looks like what we're doing. One messy pancake at a time." He chuckled. "I can live with that." "Can you?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because pancakes get sticky." Wayne reached for her hand. "Then I'll be sticky too." They laughed softly, heads leaning together. Micah ran past them, arms spread like airplane wings, shouting something about syrup rockets. Wayne watched him, then looked back at Amber. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For making this penthouse something more." Amber nodded. "You're welcome." Then Wayne said something he never imagined himself saying. "I'm not afraid anymore." Amber looked at him. "Of what?" "Being touched," he whispered. "Physically, emotionally. I think I was just waiting for the right ones." Amber took a breath, and the moment hung there, sweet, tender, real. In the silence that followed, neither of them needed to say more. The kiss had unlocked something. The name Dad had broken something. And now, they were building something new. Together. The sun was up, but the house stayed still. A rare quietness settled across the penthouse like a warm quilt. Micah was curled up in a blanket fort made of couch cushions and Wayne's old suit jackets, humming softly to himself as he colored in a spaceship drawing. Amber stood at the sink, rinsing out a mug, her mind spinning quietly. She'd been up since before dawn, heart racing, hands clutching a small white stick that now rested quietly beneath a dish towel in the master bathroom. She hadn't told Wayne yet, hadn't even let herself fully absorb it. But the truth bloomed in her chest like a held breath. She was pregnant. Again. The thought terrified her, not because of the child, but because of the beauty of what it could mean, of what it would mean, if she let it. A family, a legacy. She placed a hand on her belly, not yet round, not yet known, but full of meaning anyway, a whisper of something sacred already stirring beneath her skin. Wayne walked in, barefoot again, hair still tousled from sleep. He looked over at her. "You okay?" Amber turned slowly, biting her lip. "I'm thinking." "That's not your usual pancake face." She smiled at that. "No, it's not." Wayne walked closer, looking over her shoulder like he was scanning her for unspoken thoughts. "You're glowing," he said, half joking, half serious. I think I'm cooking something more than pancakes." Wayne blinked. "You what?" Amber reached into her back pocket and pulled out the test, wrapped in tissue. She handed it to him silently. Wayne looked down, read the result, and froze. The air held still. His hands didn't shake, but his chest rose in a slow, deep breath. "You're sure?" She nodded. "I took 3. This one's the clearest." Wayne didn't speak. He just turned toward her, knelt. Again, not for love, not for proposal, not even out of tradition, but out of gratitude. He pressed both palms gently against her belly and bowed his head. "Thank you," he whispered. Amber's eyes watered. Wayne's voice cracked. "I know what it feels like to walk around a house full of marble and know you're the only heartbeat in it. But now this place has heartbeat everywhere." She let out a soft laugh, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. "I didn't expect this," she whispered. "Not again." Wayne looked up. "Does it scare you?" "A little." "Me too." They sat on the kitchen floor like that, just 2 people learning to trust. A future that neither of them could control, but both were willing to build. After a few moments, Micah popped his head out from the fort. "Mommy, why is Wayne talking to your belly?" Amber smiled. "Come here, baby." Micah padded across the floor and climbed into her lap, eyes wide. Amber took his hand and guided it gently to her stomach. "There's a baby in there," she said. Micah's jaw dropped. "A real baby? Like a real baby?" Wayne nodded. "Yup, like a tiny person. Growing in there. Like you did." Micah looked down at her belly, then back up, eyes wide as saucers. "I'm gonna be a big brother." Amber nodded slowly. "Looks like it." Micah jumped up and ran around the kitchen yelling, "I'm a big brother! I'm a big brother!" Wayne laughed. Amber smiled through tears. Micah ran back, clutching his drawing. "I'm gonna draw the baby a rocket ship, a fast one so it can come out faster." Amber giggled. "That's not quite how it works." But Micah wasn't listening. He was already scribbling with wild joy, lying on his belly on the floor. Wayne watched him, then turned back to Amber. "He's not scared." "Nope. Maybe we can learn from him." Amber nodded slowly. "Maybe we should." Later that afternoon, Amber stood at the stove, stirring something in a large pot. The scent of ginger, garlic, and love floated through the air. "What is that?" Wayne asked from the couch. Micah passed out on his chest mid-cartoon. "Something my grandmother used to make. Belly soup." "Belly soup?" "Yeah. Every time someone in our family got pregnant, she'd make this. She said it helped the baby feel warm." Wayne tilted his head. "What's in it?" "Chicken, sweet potatoes, peppers, turmeric, and love." He grinned. "That last part's doing all the work." She turned, spoon in hand, her expression soft. "I'm building a legacy, Wayne. Not just a family. Not just children." Wayne sat up slowly, shifting Micah onto a pillow. "A legacy." "Yeah, one where love doesn't hide, where children grow up knowing they were chosen, not just born." Wayne came to her, wrapping his arms gently around her waist. "I want that too." Amber looked at him. "You're sure?" Wayne kissed her temple. "More than I've ever been sure of anything in my life." They stood like that as the soup simmered, 2 people, 1 pot, and a lifetime ahead of them. That night, Micah insisted on practicing his big brother skills by reading to Amber's belly. He chose a bedtime story with animals and made funny voices. Amber lay on her side, giggling as Wayne adjusted pillows around her, gently rubbing her back. "I never had this," she whispered. Wayne leaned down. "Neither did I." They listened as Micah finished his story, kissed her belly, and crawled into bed beside them. "Good night, baby," Micah mumbled. "Don't pee in there." Amber burst out laughing. "Micah." Wayne joined in, laughing so hard he nearly fell off the bed. That night, they didn't talk about business. They didn't talk about plans. They just held each other, breathed in the joy, and let peace settle into their bones. The next morning, Wayne stood at the marble kitchen counter, chopping fruit awkwardly. Amber watched him from across the room. "You're using a steak knife." He looked down. "Oh, is that bad?" Amber laughed. "Only if you want to keep all your fingers." He looked up at her. "I'm trying." "I see that." Wayne glanced at the belly and softened. "I just want to get it right." "You will." He paused, then looked at her fully. "We're gonna need more syrup." Amber smiled. "Yeah, a lot more." It was a Sunday morning the world might forget, but Wayne Whitmore never would. Not because of a business deal, not because of a Forbes article or a conference in Singapore, but because of the way Amber's hand gripped his, soaked in love and sweat and disbelief, as she brought their second son into the world. "Push, Amber. One more," the midwife said. Amber clenched her jaw. Her curls were plastered to her face. Her fingers trembled, but her eyes stayed locked on Wayne. Micah sat in the waiting room with a juice box and a stuffed rocket ship. But Wayne? Wayne never left her side. The moment the baby cried, sharp, fierce, full of promise, Wayne's knees buckled. A boy. Their boy. "Welcome to the world, Elijah," Amber whispered hoarsely. Wayne bent over the tiny, swaddled body, blinking back tears. The name rolled off his tongue like a hymn. Elijah. The nurse handed him over. 7 pounds. Healthy lungs. Curly hair. And when Wayne cradled that newborn against his chest, the marble-hearted man finally shattered, in the most beautiful way. Micah's eyes widened when he saw the baby. He stood on tiptoe beside the hospital bed, clutching Wayne's leg. "He's so little." Amber smiled from her pillow. "Micah, meet Elijah." Micah approached slowly. Wayne bent down, placing the baby in his arms with care. The toddler cradled his new brother like he was holding the moon. "Elijah," he whispered, stroking his cheek. "I'm your big brother. I'll teach you things, like how to make pancake faces and how to color inside the lines. Sometimes," Amber laughed softly. "That's a big job, Micah." Micah nodded seriously. "I can do it. I promise." Wayne watched the two boys and whispered, "I never thought marble could become flesh." Amber tilted her head. "What?" Wayne looked at her, eyes shining. "I built my life out of stone. But these boys? They're turning it into a home." Weeks later, the house felt different now. The sound of cooing replaced the old silence. Amber's humming filled the gaps between diaper changes and burping cloths. Wayne had memorized Elijah's cry, his feeding rhythm, his sleepy coos. He'd also memorized Micah's bedtime demands, story first, then pancakes talk, then blanket tuck. In that order, Sunday nights became sacred. Amber would cook Mommy's belly soup with Micah's assistance, mostly throwing carrots into the pot and sneaking bites. Wayne would set the table, sometimes with forks facing the wrong way, but always with love. After dinner came pajamas, stories, and syrup-sticky fingers. Wayne sat cross-legged on the living room rug, with one boy in each arm and Amber behind him, braiding his hair, yes, his hair, because Micah had declared, "Daddy needs tiny braids too." Wayne didn't argue. Instead, he let himself be braided, stickered, and turned into a jungle gym, because this was the life he didn't even know he was allowed to want. One evening, after Micah had fallen asleep across the couch with pancake syrup on his cheek, and Elijah lay dreaming in his bassinet, Wayne retreated to his quiet corner, his journaling chair. It had collected dust for years, but not anymore. He pulled open the leather-bound book Amber gifted him months ago, the one that read, "For the moments that change you." He turned to a fresh page and began to write, I wasn't touched for 34 years, not in the way that matters, not by hands that made me feel seen, or by voices that said, "You can be loved without performing." I wasn't touched by joy or grief, or pancakes burned on one side, until a woman named Amber opened my fridge and told me I needed butter, until a boy named Micah traced beauty into my marble floors, until a baby named Elijah made me fall to my knees. I used to wake up in fear. Now I wake up to love. He closed the book. Tears slipped down his face, but he didn't wipe them. Amber came up behind him, wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "Reading it to me someday," she whispered. He turned, touched her belly gently, flat again, soft and healing. "You already know every word." She sat in his lap. No lace, no pretense, just oversized socks, sleepy eyes, and a kind of peace she never thought she'd have. "I love you," she whispered. Wayne smiled. "I love pancakes. I love chaos. I love bedtime fights over which story to read. And yes, I love you, Amber Riley." She kissed him, not rushed, not staged. Not because the moment demanded it, but because the moment deserved it. Morning light spilled through the windows. Micah ran down the hallway wearing one sock and a cape made from an old t-shirt. Elijah cooed in his crib, swaddled in a blanket with rocket ships embroidered in gold thread. Amber flipped pancakes with one hand while humming to gospel music. Wayne stood beside her, pouring syrup. She leaned in and kissed his cheek. "Still learning to come second?" Wayne smirked. "Some days, I come fourth." She winked. "Progress." They plated breakfast and joined the boys at the table. Micah said grace, "Thank you, God, for pancakes, for Elijah, for Mom and Wayne, and for no bellyaches." Wayne nearly choked laughing. Amber passed him a napkin. Micah grinned proudly. That was a good prayer. Wayne raised his cup of apple juice in a toast. To love. Messy, loud, syrup-dripping love. Amber added softly, "And to stillness, the kind you build, not the kind you fear." They clinked their cups. The moment paused in time. 2 children, 2 adults, and a kind of healing that didn't need marble statues or glass walls to prove it was real. Because now, Wayne no longer feared dawn. Because now, he wakes up to love. Comment: real love grows in unexpected places. Like this story, share it with someone who needs to believe again. Subscribe to Mr. Comfort Stories, because not all CEOs need saving. Some just need pancakes.